Brothers and sisters, thank you for joining me for day number 13 of these prophetic teachings. And today we will be in Matthew chapter 13, if you would like to join me with your scriptures. And I invite Christ into my presence and ask that all those listening will invite him in to become the master teacher in their life. Today, as we go over these teachings, it is important for me to remind you again that when Christ came, he was truly speaking to the house of Israel. And that's why not everyone understood. And as the house of Israel was scattered, and now he's gathering it back together, those 12 tribes back together, there will be things that the house of Israel has been hidden from the house of Israel that will now come to light. And that will cause conflict within people of religion, because it is truly bringing back the true traditions of the fathers, which is not taught in a religious setting. But first, I would like to go back. There's a few things that the Lord asked me to go back and touch on. And so yesterday in Matthew 7:21 through 23, he said, "Not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven." So if we never get to that point of true redemption that the process that the Lord will take us to, we are not taken back into the presence of Father, and so therefore we cannot do his will. In 23 says, "Many will say unto me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name, and in thy name have cast out devils, and in thy name done many wonderful works?" There is power in the name of Jesus Christ. But if that's all the people get to is the name of Jesus Christ, that salvation that he offers them, then they're missing that there is another step. And now he takes you, salvation, yes, it's given to every single one of us through baptism. That was the whole purpose of the baptism. But now Christ has to take us through the redemption process, because how can we get to the will of the Father if all we know is the Son? "And then I will profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity." So if we don't let Christ take us through this redemption process back into the presence of Father and Mother, then we are still in a worldly mindset, because he has not taken us through that renewal of our minds, that purification process, that cleansing, that the true redemption that Christ walks us through if we allow him to do that. And then he asked me to share, and I might have just touched on these things, but we'll see. So the whole purpose of these teachings, in which Christ, when he walked upon the earth, when Jesus taught the people, he was teaching the house of Israel. So as Jesus taught the house of Israel before they were scattered, he now is gathering them and teaching them in spirit God's kingdom truths, that when he returns, they will be like him. And that is the promise of the Last Supper, that you can't come with me now, but let me show you how it's done, and you will be able to be with me in the heavenly realm. So the whole purpose of him teaching the house of Israel was to bring back the true traditions of the fathers, that must be taught, and no longer the false traditions of our fathers. So the true traditions, so we have a record that is extremely incomplete. And so even our father Abraham, we have such a very small record, and we know that, yes, he was asked to sacrifice his son. But what led up to those things, and the process that he went through, and the purification that he went through, all these things that he went through, we have but a very, very small record. And the true traditions of the fathers that have been hidden from the earth, have been taken from the earth. And now Christ, through the Spirit, as you are taken back into the heavenly realm, God will begin to reveal those things to you as Christ takes you through the steps of what this looks like, of what the true traditions of the fathers looks like. And that was the whole purpose of Christ coming and teaching the house of Israel, teaching them what they had forgotten. And that is what he's doing us now, so that he can truly redeem his people before his millennial reign. So Christ takes us to the higher laws, back into the presence of God through this redemption process. And this is where the persecution and hatred of others will come into play, is because every man-made church offers baptism, which is for the salvation of our souls, and every church offers the lesser law. Only Christ walking you through this process can take you into the higher laws. And so because we live in a fallen world, but as we will learn today about righteous men and prophets, not everyone is going to see this. And it is meant for the house of Israel first, because the first shall be last and the last shall be first. And he will teach them again what they knew from the beginning. And it will cause offense and anger and hatred, contention, all of that, everything of the devil. This will cause, because that's the devil's plan. He does not want people to be adopted into the house of Israel. And so as Christ takes us to these higher laws, yes, people of religion, the Pharisees, scribes, Pharisees and Sadducees, they'll become angry, because how dare we tell them something that looks different from what they're preaching, what they are sharing with the world. And it's not to say that they're bad people. They're doing the best with what they have. And then there's love through that. And there's also the opportunity for the house of Israel then to lead people directly to Christ, so then he can walk them through this redemption process. And that is the adoption into the house of Israel. So if we understand that Christ taught more than just baptism, and he was hated by religious people, the house of Israel. He was hated by religious people for teaching the higher laws unto the house of Israel. So as we keep that in mind today, as we go through why Jesus Christ teaches in parables. So we are in Matthew 13, and we're going to read 1 through 23. The same day went Jesus unto the house and sat by the seaside, and great multitudes were gathered together unto him, so that he went into a ship and sat, and the whole multitude stood on the shore. And he spake many things unto them in parables, saying, Behold, a sower went forth to sow. And when he sowed, some seeds fell by the wayside, and the fowls came and devoured them up. Some fell upon stony places where they had not much earth, and forthwith they sprang up, because they had no deepness of earth. And when the sun was up, they were scorched, and because they had no root, they withered away. And some fell among thorns, and the thorns sprung up and choked them. But others fell in good ground and brought forth good fruit, some 100-fold, some 60-fold, some 30-fold. Who hath ears to hear, let him hear. And the disciples came and said unto him, Why speakest thou unto them in parables? He answered and said unto them, and these disciples, we have to remember, these 12 disciples are over the 12 tribes of Israel. They belong to the 12 tribes of Israel. That's what the representation of the 12 disciples is. So this is what he's teaching the house of Israel. This is the very small remnant that is coming forth. at this time that is being taught God's eternal truths. He answered and said unto them, because it is given unto you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it is not given. And it is not given because because again, this is a process of them going from the lesser law to the higher law and that adoption into the house of Israel. For whosoever hath, to him shall be given. So who had from the beginning? It was the house of Israel. And he shall have more abundance. But whosoever hath not, from him shall be taken away even that he hath. So this is the refiner's fire. He takes us, our faith has to go from the faith of the world to the faith of the kingdom. And so if we have faith in men, what do we really have? We don't really have anything. And he's saying that, but whosoever hath not, from him shall be taken away even that he hath. And it needs to be taken away from us because it's been taught to us by man. And so Christ is offering, as the house of Israel returns and begins to bring in this in harvest, he is bringing in that adoption into the house of Israel so that people can learn the truth. Therefore speak I to them in parables, because they seeing see not, and hearing they hear not, neither do they understand. And he spoke this in about being born again. If the Lord speaks things of the earth and we understand them not, then how can he speak us the things of the kingdom? If we don't understand the things of the earth, it would be to our condemnation for him to speak things of the heavens, because we would not understand them. And this is said with such love, because this is a process that's part of the end harvest, is truly that every soul can be redeemed, but the truth of God's kingdom gospel, the true traditions of the fathers, these things have to come forth first in order for the end harvest to come forth. And in them is fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah, which saith, by hearing ye shall hear and shall not understand, and seeing ye shall see and not perceive. So our ears are blinded to the things of the, or are closed to the things of the kingdom, and our eyes cannot see the things of the kingdom. So we're still stuck in this worldly mindset, and this is what we see. And so that's why ye hear and shall not understand, and seeing ye shall see and shall not perceive. For these people's heart is waxed gross. And we've talked about our hearts. This is the whole purpose of the purification process, is because our hearts have to be purified, and that can only happen as Christ takes us down this redemption process. And we can be baptized and never get to that place of redemption. We can be baptized and it begins within a short period of time. We can be baptized and it begins in 30 years. It is all an individual process of when God knows that we're ready and our hearts are truly ready to receive of his truth and understand that it is definitely going to look different from the world. So it's our hearts that are bound from Satan. And so he's saying that the reason why the people cannot hear and cannot see is because this people's hearts is waxed gross, and their ears are dull of hearing, and their eyes they have closed. Lest at any time they should see with their eyes and hear with their ears, and should understand with their heart. So here's the promise to each of us. And should be converted from man teaching them to Christ teaching them. That's true conversion, is when Christ becomes the master teacher in your life and you're converted unto him teaching you. and understanding that all truth comes from Christ and not man, and should be converted, and I should heal them. He will heal us from everything that this world has infiltrated our minds with and has led us down wrong paths, and just healing in all aspects. That redemption process is true healing, taking us from the weaknesses and infirmities that this world has created and making them the strengths, and renewing our minds and from those weaknesses, and so teaching us the true redemption process so we don't continue to repeat those patterns of the flesh. 16, but blessed are your ears, for they see, and let me repeat that. And remember that he's speaking to the house of Israel in this. But blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear. And 17 is something that just, as you study this on your own with the Lord, please just sit and let him walk you through the understanding, because this understanding has to truly resonate in your heart as Christ can teach it to you. For verily I say unto you that many prophets and righteous men. So he's not saying these are evil people. He's saying many prophets and righteous men have desired to see those things which ye see, and have not seen them, and to hear those things which ye hear, and have not heard them. So as this world continues to look to prophets and look to righteous men and say, well, they're leading us, and we're just going to trust them because they know the things of God, and they're not going to lead us astray. This verse 17 is a great warning to all of us that just because someone is a prophet or a righteous man does not mean, they've desired to see those things which ye have seen, but he tells us, and have not seen them, and to hear those things which ye hear, and have not heard them. Our truth has to come directly from the Lord. And as we stop putting prophets and righteous men in the place of Christ, because that's truly the spirit of the antichrist. When we look to men to take the place of Christ, we are sidestepping Christ, and that is the spirit of antichrist. We idolize these prophets and righteous men because they just know, and they're led by God, and they can teach us things that we don't know, and we idolize these men, and Christ is telling us, don't do that, because I have to teach you the truth. These men are not on a pedestal. To God, no man is above another. God is no respecter of person. And when we idolize people of religious authority, or it shouldn't be authority, but religious people, that is not allowing us to get to Christ, because all idols have to be removed from our path. And so, again, please take verse 17 just in absolute prayer to the Lord, and allow him to walk you through that in your own life of what that looks like for you. So now he's explaining to the house of Israel why he speaks in these parables. Hear ye therefore the parable of the sower. So this is what he was teaching. When any one heareth the word of the kingdom, so not the gospel of man, but the gospel of the kingdom, and understandeth it not, then cometh the wicked one, that chaseth away that which was sown in his heart. So we have to know immediately when you hear the word of the kingdom and this is what Christ was going through in his 40-day, when he was on with his 40-day fast, was that Satan was right there to steal away what God had done in him. And it's a promise to us that Satan's going to be right there to catch away that which was sown in his heart. This is he that receiveth seed by the wayside. So if we hear the word of the kingdom and we immediately, when Satan says that's not true, and we cast it away, those were, this is he which receiveth seed by the wayside. We pushed it to the side and we said, nope, that can't be correct. It looks different than the world. But he that receiveth the seed into stony places, the same is he that heareth the word and with joy receiveth it. So at first when he hears it, he does receive the word, yet hath he not root in himself. So he has no faith in himself of what he heard from the heavenly realm as Christ was spoke a word of the kingdom to him. But dureth for a while, so he holds on to it until, for when tribulation or persecution ariseth because of the word, by and by he is offended. So because others do not see what Christ has shown you, there will be those that will hold on to that truth. But when the persecution and the tribulation becomes harder and harder as you reveal the truth in which you've been given, and this is the casting your pearls before swines. If people are not ready to receive those things, there's going to be a lot of tribulation and persecution against you. Will you hold true to the word of the kingdom that God has given you? And he said, by and by, he is offended. And that offense then takes us back into a worldly mindset. 22, he also that receiveth seed among the thorns is he that heareth the word, and the cares of this world and the deceitfulness of riches choke the word, and he becometh unfruitful. So we've received the word and we know the word is true, but it's so easy to get caught back up into the things of the world and the cares of the world, and the deceit of what this world, because it's so much easier to just go back to what is comfortable. And God and Christ is saying, no, don't go back to what is comfortable. Don't go back to the deceit of the world. Don't go back to the riches, the deceit of riches. So what this world has to offer us, right? We can become rich in the things of this world. He's saying, don't do that, because in the process, this chokes the word and it becometh unfruitful. So he gave us this word, and there was no fruit then that came from him allowing us to have the kingdom gospel. 23, but he that receiveth seed into the good ground is he that heareth the word and understandeth it, which also beareth fruit and bringeth forth some 100-fold, some 60, and some 30. So the good ground, we've received it from Christ, and we have stayed steadfast, and we've allowed that to take root within us. And because of that, it will truly bring in the folds, the end harvest. When that time comes, it will truly bring in the fold. But not only that, he's taking me back, because it will be before that, because this will help bring in the tribe, because this is for the house of Israel. This understanding of those who will hold on to the kingdom word will truly bring in the folds of the house of Israel. Thank you for joining me today. And as always, I encourage you to just take these scriptures, Matthew 13, before the Lord, and allow him to become the master teacher in your life. And I hope that brings enlightenment and encouragement to all of us today to truly turn to the Lord, because he can teach us the truths of all things, and they are truly beautiful. God bless.